Cool.
Okay. All right. So we're going to get started tonight. Hi, everyone. My name is Rose. I'm the exhibition coordinator at the New Art Center. And to help to coordinate this exhibition, today we have a virtual artist talk featuring the 3 artists from the Guess Who I Saw Today exhibition, along with our guest curator, Ashleigh Coren. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Ashleigh to you all, and we can get this talk started tonight.
Great, excellent. Thank you so much, Rose. And thank you to everyone at New Art Center for helping me bring this vision to life. And especially thank you to Matt, DaNice, and Ivan for being the brilliant and incredibly talented souls who are essential to this exhibition. So thank you both very much. Before I jump in, I wanted to briefly acknowledge the memory of Brandon Lewis, former New Art Center employee. Brandon, I appreciated working with you last year, and we will forever remember you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ashleigh.
And with that, let's jump into the discussion. So for those who are watching, the exhibition is called Guess Who I Saw Today? And it is my second collaboration with both the New Art Center and 3 of these artists, Matt Brackett, DaNice Marshall, and Ivan Brens. Just super quickly, Guess Who I Saw Today is an exhibition that features the narrative work of 3 gifted Boston-based artists. The show poses the question, what is the relationship between craftsmanship and the expression of the human condition through art? So Matt, DaNice, and Ivan incorporate subjects in this exhibition relating to history, familial bonds, and the natural world to reveal the nuances of the creative process. All of their objects in the show really affirm art's role in informing and providing critical insight into examining how we interact with the world around us. And for me, that was so important to be able to sort of tap into not just what people see, but how is this thing made? How are these artists producing these amazing works, and to really get people to sort of understand that relationship. So very quickly, I'm a museum interpreter and an educator here in Washington, D.C. And so I'm always interested in the story behind the story, right? So with these particular works of art, how does its creation, how does the inspiration, how does the artist's approach to craftsmanship play a role in placing value and creating a narrative behind a particular piece? So I'm going to be speaking with Matt, DaNice, and Ivan to talk more about their work, but to also just brag about how awesome they are. So y'all ready? All right. So what I'll do is that I'll just nod to a particular person, but please feel free, the 3 of you, please feel free to just talk amongst each other. I'm just here being Oprah for 45 minutes. So please feel free to just, I mean, you all know each other, so please feel free to jump in. But I'd like Ivan to actually start this conversation off. So Ivan, just take a minute or 2 and please, introduce yourself to our audience. Provide your artist statement and share with us some of your inspirations that inform your artistic practice.
Wow, that's tough. I started. That's okay. Well, I try to do my best since I'm not really a speaker. I'm a bit shy in terms of talking on public. Anyway, my name is Ivan Brens. I've been an artist since I'm a little kid, doing all kinds of stuff from sculpture, painting, music, and drawing, illustration, caricature. And I'm originally from the Dominican Republic. My art always has been part of portraying and enabling kind of the human existence, kind of the spiritual history of humanity. I tend to use a lot of social themes and based on social justice, but at the same time trying to uncover those cultures that have been misinterpreted in life, trying to raise those values, since I'm part of that type of culture, place where we were kind of, or we've been kind of forgotten about what our contribution is to society and to the world in terms of culturally. In America, it's quite obvious that we have that awakening, and I am part of being in such a way kind of an illustrator to our, cultural side. Anyway, I've been in Boston for about 30 years so on, and it's a great city. Very pleased and happy to be part of this amazing institution, which is, very well known and respected, and have done so much for the community. And you, and Rose and the other artists, that it's been amazing to be part of, because, the way you gather us, being from different backgrounds, different style, it's just amazing to just show, that we all kind of link to one purpose, which is to show that part of humanity, that part of the soul, that is in us, and try to raise the beauty of our everyday life with these little details, which is called the visual art. And that's pretty much, maybe I missed something, but yeah.
No, that was wonderful. Thank you, Ivan. And before DaNice jumps in, I want to mention, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Ivan's work, I mean, his work is an incredible, it's a mix of different genres, right? But like Ivan mentioned, a lot of his work deals with the history of the African diaspora, deals with the history of labor. And, even thinking about the inspiration for Guess Who I Saw Today, I was thinking a lot about Ivan's work was in my previous show, Artist Solve, last year. And there's this wonderful piece, and Ivan, you'll have to remind me what the title is, but it's this giant portrait of the $5 bill with Abraham Lincoln on the front. And what's really fascinating about that particular work, which is cognizant with, which is, applies to all of Ivan's work, is that he's really thinking about the relationship, like, right, we're talking about craftsmanship, but like craftsmanship on a higher level, like thinking about the individuals who made the dollar possible, who made this country possible, and sort of making sort of a narrative tie between the development of that particular piece, but also the development of this particular country, and how those two things can be linked in various ways. So please check Ivan's work out. Now, DaNice, I saw that you unmuted yourself.
Thank you.
Am I talking? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Excellent, excellent. DaNice Marshall. Started painting 2017 after I became sick in 2016. Fast forward, my work is always trying to just relate with people, to try to show that we all connect by showing joy and happiness. Some of my pieces, I think, are more along the lines of taking something that's that we don't readily want to talk about, that's rather ugly, but making people want to see it anyway, by using colors and trying to be vibrant with the brush strokes. And I try to use a lot of paint. I try not to be too cheap with it. So I do a lot of textures. But that's where I come from. Is my background is not an artist. I climb telephone poles for a living, so this is new to me, but I have been so welcomed into the art community. Thank you, Ashleigh. And just, I don't know, I'm kind of a little speechless today. So I have to be prompted with questions, I think.
All right. Well, I've got a ton of them, so get ready.
Oh, good. Good.
What's really interesting is that, each artist in the show has their own particular flavor, but with DaNice and Matt's work, and I'll turn this over to you, Matt, there's also an interest in the everyday. And sort of really exploring things that may seem to the outside, that may seem mundane, but actually when you sort of put a lens to it, and really sort of look at these things, these moments, these sequences, these objects really close up, there's a lot that you can do. There's a lot that you can say. So Matt, can you talk a little bit about sort of your work, especially the intersections of sort of technology and your practice? So.
Thank you. Wow. I mean, Ivan and DaNice, you guys really pretty much said everything that needs to be said. That was great. My name's Matt Brackett. I've been a painter in Boston for, around, it's getting up there. I grew up in Cambridge, went to school in Connecticut, and came back. And I was working in Somerville for a number of years until we started our family. We moved to Boston. And I think my work is covered a lot of different bases. I feel sometimes I talk to people and they're like, no, I can see a thread through all your different kind of bodies of work. I tend to do, I think, kind of thematic bodies of work. But I think the overarching themes that might be in my work are narrative, grasping, or also I think I am fascinated with kind of mystery and ambiguity, and sometimes even menace, and sometimes hope, that is presented to the viewer in a way where it really it's up to the viewer to kind of decide what is happening in a narrative situation. And that has become, especially the work in this show, these images were kind of emotional sounding boards or engines for me to kind of revisit myself, to kind of mine from myself what I want to take from the images. So they're often, I mean, I think I do, I'm dedicated to the craft of painting. I like using those materials to make my messages in the world. But I am also interested in kind of creating these engines to continuously provide or suggest meaning that is useful in some sort of way. And again, kind of in the way that Ivan and DaNice were talking about, where you realize as a viewer, and even in discussions with fellow viewers or in a gallery setting, that there are these kind of universal kind of experiences and shared impressions that really resonate among all of us. Was that kind of what you were talking? I don't know if you were talking about technology or
we can talk a little bit about that later in the next question.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's perfect, Matt. Like that's absolutely perfect. So thank you both. Thank you all three of you. Sorry, it's late in the day for me. So all right, so we're going to move on to our next question, which is, in your opinion, what is the relationship between craftsmanship and the expression of the human condition through art? So let me break it down in less jargony terms. So essentially, as I mentioned at the start, Guess Who I Saw Today is essentially an examination into the relationship between how something is made and then how we interpret it. Right? Once something is made, what is sort of the narrative that's being expressed and how are people interpreting these pieces? So sort of in your opinion, what is that relationship between your artistic process, your approach to the work, even thinking about the materials that you use, particular genres that you're invested in? How does that sort of relate to how the three of you in very different ways are really sort of talking about the human condition? So, DaNice, would you mind starting us off?
Absolutely. I think for me, a lot of my stuff, for me in my mind, because I was a writer, the Harlem Renaissance means so much to me. And so a lot of my stuff, it will show a snapshot of the human condition, a snapshot. It might be the front of a building, a brick building, a brownstone per se. And the interaction of people in that moment. The piece that I'm proud of that's showing right now at the New Art Corridor is America's Family Vacation. And that one's special to me because there was so many messages, and a lot of people don't see the messages. There's the children who are posed as in speak no evil, hear no evil, see no evil. And yet there's evil that they see, but they don't understand it. And so that was a message I wanted to get across, to the innocence. And so when you talk about craftsmanship and how it applies to the human condition, for me, children don't understand all that they're being bombarded with. There's a lot going on, and even though they're kids, they see it, they don't understand it. So that was something I wanted to say. And then Nipsey Hussle had passed away, and I wanted to represent him and say how much hip hop influences. And of course, Mexico, 1968, the Olympics. So that was for me, my craftsmanship, being able to tie to and tell a story, even though it's not a happy story. The parents are smiling, there's hope. There's always a hopefulness.
And Ivan, you really pull into history too as well. Can you sort of talk about sort of your work and the relationship between your artistic process and the expressions of the human condition throughout your pieces?
Yes, I mean, basically, my craftsmanship, I would say that is part of, history at the same time, because I work in many different series. I have all the more secular, let's say, happier, series where, I was more touched with, the simplicity of life, the hopscotch. It's that game that the kids play. So I kind of make it more, surrealistic, at the same time, very playful, kind of erotic, but that's part of the craftsmanship of the whole process of putting it together. I have this vision. I have this. I read this poem. I'm very inspired by a lot of reading. Poetry from the French ones to the Dostoevsky and the Russians. Philosophers and music, for instance, it's very huge in my case. I tend to work in compositions that have some kind of a rhythm, some kind of where the eyes can lead through how the painting. So, to tie that with, the social justice type of series that I have, it is challenging. Why? Because the truth is out there, but how you can make it, like DaNice was saying, that you can hide certain truths, make it more subtle so they can just stop and rethink and, take the topic on their own and just deeper a little further for their own imagination. So my craftsmanship, I would say that it's part of all of these experiences, and then how to put it together like a puzzle and work it in a way that, the process is a ritual. And that's what brings that type of enlightenment and for the product itself, but that you say, okay, you just kind of got the shot after.
Yeah, that was wonderful. Thank you, Ivan.
Thank you.
All right, Matt.
Oh boy. I mean, I've touched on a lot of different things in my work, but I think the work in the show, I talk about this narrative ambiguity, and I do think that in my figurative work, I am really playing with and reflecting a universal human experience, which is just kind of uncertainty and just kind of like that. I think artists can remind the rest of us, or we can remind ourselves actually, that there are many things that are ungraspable, undefinable, and I think there are unique methodologies in the arts, in the variety of arts, to get at that idea, that there's like mystery. There's mystery beyond us, and I think that's what I like trying to get at in my work. And I was just going to say that in terms of the craftsmanship, I think I love paint. I think there's something about paint that that makes an object where you sit in front of it. And there's many things that are like this, but you sit in front of it and you can see the touch. You can see human touch applied over hours and days and weeks and months. And that to me is just pretty incredible. And I love making objects. I worked in my earlier days as a carpenter, and I think I'm a builder and a maker kind of generally. And that's what I like about making materials, is that it's kind of like a human mark on the world. And so the painting becomes a physical human mark on the world, but also kind of a conceptual one as well.
You mentioned something that's so key with all of your work is, and what I love about, there are many reasons why I chose these three artists for the show, but what I love the most is, so my background's partially in portraiture, and a lot of portraiture are paintings. And what's great about painting is that, when you walk into a gallery or a museum, you see a particular work of art, you look at it, but you really do have to sit with it. Right. And what I wanted with the works of this show was to really encourage people to just sit with what it was they were looking at. Because at first glance, you might be like, oh, there's an elephant. Cool. Like, that's so awesome. But you really have to take the time. And this is one of Matt's works, by the way. But you really do have to take the time to just sit and be still, to really sort of engage with the work on the wall, because you're going to miss something if you don't take that time to really sort of sit and observe everything in the particular painting, right? The artist's hand, or the use of color, or the objects, or the figures in the painting, even the setting, right? And so what I love about all the works in this particular show is that, you know, they really sort of force you to slow down, right? It's very easy to go to a gallery and just go boop, 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 and just, you know, stop by all the paintings. But with this show, I really wanted people to slow down. And I think all the works in the show really sort of force the viewer to just take a moment to sort of really take everything in, and to possibly, as Matt has mentioned, sort of settle with ambiguity, or with DaNice's work, sort of settle with the familiarity of things, but like figuring out sort of what she's trying to say. And with Ivan, there's so much emotion and vibrancy in his work, but you really sort of have to unpack it, because there's a lot that's going on. The colors are vibrant, it's beautiful, but there's a lot more going on than just the vibrancy of the particular work. There's some different conversations happening. And so I think with these particular artists, it's, for me, it's just a really great way to force people to slow down. So
Well done.
So my third question, and Matt, start us off, because you were talking a bit about this earlier, but could you please go into depth a little bit about any particular stories or themes that reoccur in your work? You could apply this directly to the works that are in the show, or you could sort of talk about your practice overall. So.
Oh, thank you. I think in my work, a bigger constant is landscape, and it has to do with a family home that we lost in the early 2000s, that was in our family for 90 years, that was on the coast of Massachusetts, on the South Coast. And my grandmother grew up there, my mother grew up there, and I grew up there, and I associate something elemental and just really restorative and reflective about that landscape. So that landscape highly permeated my narrative work. I played a little bit of a part in the kind of, I actually had a body work that was landscape based and kind of winter themes. It became kind of political. And then also I think for my work is, and particularly in the figurative work, is family, and you know, chosen families, you know, friends as well. I'm probably like a cheapo artist. I've never kind of figured out how to work with professional models, so I just kind of either use myself or my kids or my close family members. And for me, that really imbues the scenes with meaning for me. And also it makes it kind of can anchor the scenes in kind of either the everyday or areas that hopefully might be more familiar, you know, familiar for many viewers, in terms of kind of like going through our daily lives. I guess those are two major themes.
Thank you. DaNice, could you share a couple of the themes that reoccur in your work? Before I go to DaNice, Matt, something I've also noticed in your work, and please just, we have a relationship now, call me out if I'm wrong. But what I think is really interesting though are like the color blue comes up a lot.
Blue and orange.
Blue and orange, yes. Yes, I've been noticing that, like, these particular colors, and it's in the show too, right?
Yep.
But I think that's really fascinating too, that like when I was looking over your portfolio, like there were two sort of shades that I sort of saw. And it's like, you know, it's almost like day and sunrise and sunset in a lot of ways when I sort of think about like the
yeah. I mean, there were elements of kind of golden hour and sunset that resonated for me with the kind of the narrative message for a lot of the figurative work. And then the kind of the blue portraits and the kind of the snow and ice scenes that happened, that was kind of, I mean, it's hard for me to say. I mean, I don't know how much thinking I did into them, but for the winter and then the blue, there were reasons for those colors and those settings. So you're right. Like, I feel like I do have an affinity for those, especially those two colors. But I do think that is related to a landscape resonance, that this kind of like, you know, autumn sunlight on objects near the water.
All right, Ms. Marshall.
Yes, I with my work, I think what I'm trying to put through all of them is just my own process. I think of myself as being very fluid. And so the things that I once felt or what I had thought I knew are not always correct and they're not always going forward. And so when I was younger, I was not very American. And I had a lot of friends from Puerto Rico, and they would have flags and we had Caribbean parades. And I was always a little envious because I didn't have this attachment and this connection to the country. After 9/11, that changed for me. It changed profoundly, as it did for most people here. And for me, I started to see myself more proud of the flag. And so in a lot of my work, there's that narrative going through it, red, white, and blue, whether they're stars and they're pink or they're stars and they're green, they're there. And I partially want people to know 50 years from now when I'm gone, this was a Black American, this was an African American woman, so that there's no doubt who I was and where I came from and what my mind was. And it's not something, I'm proud of it. And I'm very proud that I'm able to present it in such a way that people understand that it's fluid. And so some of it is not a celebration of America. It's not like, yay, yay, yay. It's like this turmoil, this sadness associated with the legacy, the roots. And so that for me is part of what I try to carry through the theme.
Yeah.
Wow, I like that. That's good.
Yeah, that's awesome, DaNice.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And you know, I'm a big DaNice stan. I'm a stan of all of these people, but I am a big fan of DaNice because what I really appreciate about your work, DaNice, is, and I wrote this person's name down, and of course I can't find it anymore. But I'm thinking there was a New England-based African-American painter in the early 20th century, and I can like see the painting. I can literally see the painting right now, and it's based, I think it's somewhere in Roxbury. But there are a number of African-American painters from that period from Boston who, you know, did these sort of street scenes or scenes in different neighborhoods and stuff. And so what I love about DaNice's work, and also Yvonne's, like I can see the lineage of like them being a part of sort of this lineage of like painters of color, and like adding to this particular lineage, which is, for me, it's like really powerful. Another thing that I really appreciate about DaNice's work is that, you know, for some of the scenes that she portrays, they could be anywhere. What I like is that you can figure out which city you want this particular work to be in. It doesn't have to be Boston. It doesn't have to be New York. It could be any sort of major city or any neighborhood. And I think that there's something that's very universal about that. The same way in that a lot of Matt's pieces are very universal in terms of like people being able to, it comes from your particular perspective and your experience and your mind. But when you look at the work, you can put yourself in it. Which for me is incredibly important when thinking about like art, right? Is like creating pieces that don't seem so inaccessible to someone who is engaging with the object. But Yvonne, what are some of your themes that reoccur in your work?
Well, I mean, in my case, I think I'm a bit less organized. I would say that because I really take it, you know, a bit raw in terms of what my projects are. I mean, I work in different series. I got back to the hopscotch series because, you know, I read upon a book by this Indian poet, and I was very inspired. And I got a couple of paintings that are based on jellyfishes, where I kind of and now, you know, kind of celebrate the human body and, you know, in the sexual instinct of you know, what is spiritual about it. That book really inspired me. So it's hard to tell. I mean, I listen to a song, and I can be a something that I got deeply, you know, touched, and I go ahead and interpret it in a way that, or let's say, I corrupt it, and I make it my own.
Yeah.
And then I try to put it, you know, in a way that people can see in a different side. You know, one of the paintings that I have is Moonage by David Bowie, Moonage Daydream. I love that song. So suddenly I just got up and I started, you know, throwing some lines and colors, and so it all depends how it comes to me in an urgent. I would say that I may be messy in terms of the process with throwing it all until it comes out, and try to make the ritual a little bit more, I would say, physic in a way. So I would say it's I'm a bit more loose in that case. Yeah.
And it's funny because so the show itself was inspired by a jazz song, one of my favorite jazz songs by Nancy Wilson, called Guess Who I Saw Today. And Ivan and I have, Ivan has a series of paintings that are inspired by music. And what I love about that is, when I listen to jazz music, which is, when I was trying to figure out the show, I was listening to jazz music. When I was creating the conception for the show, I was listening to jazz music. And so to be able to look at Ivan's work and to see someone also inspired by jazz and their work, but to see like a visual representation of it is really amazing for me, because I cannot paint for shit. Like, just like full disclosure, can't paint, can't draw, can't write, can't sculpt, can't do anything. Okay. And so when I encounter people who are able to actually bring to life things that like I see in my head, I mean, it's remarkable. It's really incredible. So thank you to all three of you for like helping me like get what was in my brain out there on the wall. So
Thank you.
Thank you for having the vision of putting the symphony together, because
Yes.
you are the conductor, and you saw the vision in how we all playing different instruments, and it came down to that show. That's thanks to you.
Yeah.
Exactly. We're a band.
Beautiful.
We're bands.
It's beautiful. We're a band. You're a band. Beautiful.
All right. The next question. And Ivan, would you mind starting us off with this one? But I would love for each of you to name a work in the show that is not your own, that either complements or creates an interesting juxtaposition with your work. So.
Well, I mean, forgive me, DaNice. I'm kind of bad with names, but I do like the one in the postcard. And I know all the words from DaNice. Like, for instance, she had in the show, which is Live Life Musically, for instance. I think in general her work is just very touching, because it's just, like you say, it's a scene that you can see everywhere. At the same time, it's full of secrets. The more you look into it, there is something. That smile means something. I mean, that woman with a broom behind the American flag, it says a lot. I mean, come on. It's just like you can imagine a billion things about why is a woman with a broom behind the American flag. And not only that, something that she does that I like and I try to do a lot in my work is that person, that character is looking at you. There is a confrontational image that it challenges the viewer. So that it also is a great catch, eye catching for communicating and having that piece being more interacting with whoever is around. So it's a wonderful work, and also remind me of Jacob Lawrence. I mean, that one of my favorite painters, a Black American painter from Harlem. I met him when I was very young, and he had a body of work back in where I'm from, Dominican Republic, and it was amazing. And it really changed my life in terms of the color or how to present the composition. DaNice is crazy. And Matt, I mean, so much I can say. Matt work is just, it reminds you that no matter what you can say, you can just not say it. Matt has the technique and the sophistication that takes you beyond, like, wow. I mean, it's not only that he has the perfect technique and the patience, and you see the work and the effort, but also he combined it with a mystic, metaphysical type of view that you can see. You can sit next to it and just see an endless, horizon. That painting Echo that has that chiaroscuro, contrast tonality, which is like, I love using that type of tonality myself. And you say it's a real landscape, it's a real imagery. He said yes, but there's a touch that he put in there that is just magical, and it's hard to forget. So the combination that he achieved with this amazing technique and then the angle and the composition and the view that he chooses is just impactful. It's something that you need to sit down and it's everlasting in your mind. So that's the purpose of life, to just leave the mark. We're not there just to solve the problem. We just to present it. Leave it to the viewer, leave
Right.
it to that one that wants to
Right.
communicate. So yeah.
That was excellent, Ivan.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Matt, are there any objects in the show that would be great companion pieces to yours? Oh, you're on mute.
There we go. Thank you. I respond to figures, and so I'm remembering. I also am terrible at titles, but I'm remembering right by the door to the parking lot, there was Ivan, you had a kind of a portrait of a semi-abstract head in greens and reds, I think. And there was something completely resonant about that portrait that really spoke to me about I think it was, do you know which one I was talking about?
Is that the small one or
Yeah,
the large one?
yeah, the small one. Anyway.
The small one, yeah, the dance, which is more green, and then there's like two figures, yeah.
Yeah, but then there's like razor lines of red in it, and I think that that one for the color really was like resonating with the kind of the green and the red, and heightening the kind of the emotional impact of that image, and it made me sit with that one for a while. I think with the images that I have that, I mean, I think with and then DaNice, I mean, I feel like DaNice, your images they fill me with such like happiness, and you talk about the underlying allowance of emotions that could be, or kind of events that might be kind of controversial or in the historical settings of the images. But I have this like joyful feeling from yours. And I don't feel like that's necessarily part of my imagery. My imagery tends to be a little bit kind of grimmer and something like that. But I feel like maybe with my treasured vessel, that with my father, that there's like a kind of a possibility of that joyfulness. And then DaNice, you had an image of a woman with a hat leaning on a porch, and I can't remember the title.
Waiting for her day.
And I love the like background of it, with like kind of the people waiting in the windows, and kind of like that kind of division of like, maybe perhaps the subject matter, but then kind of like a hidden subject matter behind, where people are just kind of like, what's going on here, and stuff like that. So I was thinking there's kind of exuberance in all of those three that potentially could kind of talk to each other, with the color and the brightness of Ivan's and DaNice's work, and then the kind of like hopeful emotional sense for the treasured vessel one.
Good. I like that. I like that.
All right, DaNice.
I think Tiempo de Blues, Ivan's piece. For me, when I looked at it, I thought that it was, and I might be wrong, but I thought of it as being human cargo. And so it connects to the beginning of what I feel is my experience. So for me, I have a tendency to want to know, because I'm a writer at heart, and I have a tendency to want to know that there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so for me, Ivan's piece would be the beginning, where human cargo's coming over. And then I like to echo a lot from Matt's work. But always, I think all the pieces, all were so humane. There was so much humanity in them. And I think that's the connection for me with all of us, is that regardless of if it's echo is a little bit of sadness or a little melancholy, or whether it's human cargo that's coming, there's still hopefulness, because that's what being human is about. That's what keeps us going, is that there's always this joy, inner joy, that we can improve upon life and we can do things better than our mother did. Say, for instance, if we're mad at our mother, oh, well, I can do better. And that will push us forward. And so, again, my fluidness wants me to say that the three artists together is that whole movement. It's a movement. It's the beginning, a middle, and there's an end. I don't know what piece brings me to the end, but I know that it's there if I went and looked again.
That's great. Thank you, DaNice.
Love it.
You're welcome.
This is my final question, and this is really an opportunity for the three of you to just really share what you're working on, and you know, anything that we as your fans can look forward to in the future. So Ivan, please start us off. What do you got working on, friend? And what's going on in the future?
Yes, well, I'm a bit of a chaos with how I plan things, but I'm working 3 series again. I mean, I have the Black Swan series, which I already have a couple of paintings that I need to, because I work in different paintings at the same time. And I'm going to continue doing the reparations series, which, you know, I'm going to be picking on the English people. So I'm going to get more enemies somewhere, somehow. So I'm going to be picking on the pound, the currency, the pound, and I'm going to grab that. And I'm still working on some Hopsicotts, you know, kind of like those secular, more happy and more exotic pieces that, you know, it's funny because it's a fun. There are some that kind of agonize you, some are a little fun, and so I combine them both. The Hopscotch it's a fun series, so it's something that kind of soothes the soul when you have to put the sword down. So yeah, be bigger, and we'll see what happens.
Excellent. Matt?
Yeah, actually, it's funny that I'm coming back to figurative work, and I've been working on another series, a newer series that actually incorporates multi-figure, like many of the images are multi-figure, and they carry themes from this prior work. Some of them are coastal based, but there are elements that are a little bit political that I kind of was experimenting with in my last 2 bodies of work, in the winter landscapes and the blue portraits that one can imagine. And then I have a show. I'm going to be included in a show next month. It's an online show with Supersonic Arts, and that's going to be showing 2 of the animal-based work from Dark Animal. So that's going to be. I'm pleased to be working with that curator. Yeah, so I'm just kind of in a production phase. Sometimes I seem to go in and out of these rhythms where I'm just making a bunch of stuff, and then I'm kind of like, you know, doing other elements of my art practice. But yeah, things are going well.
I'll jump in. Am I up next? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Perhaps maybe Ashleigh.
All right, go for it, DaNice.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a show coming up in Pennsylvania at Bryn Mawr. I have a show, and that's this weekend will open. I have a show in Vermont in November at a Plume Gallery. And excitedly, I was accepted and given a residency at Mass MoCA, which I'm so excited about that I can share. And the last thing that I'm going to share is I just found out that Attleboro Art Museum has asked me to come look at some Civil War pieces, General Hutton. And so I'll be able to select a piece and then do my interpretation of what that Civil War piece means to me. And I'm going to paint specifically for that for a showing that will be in February for Black History Month.
DaNice, that's amazing. That's a lot going on. It's so
That's a
Yeah,
lot
y'all
going
are
on.
busy.
That's a lot going on. I know. Yeah. Yeah. It's exciting. Exciting times. Exciting times indeed.
Well, the best of luck to all of you. I have no concern that you all will be able to reach all of your goals. But since we have a few minutes, I wanted to open up a couple of questions, or open up the floor for a few questions from the audience. We have time for about a few questions. So, please take a moment and feel free to ask anything of Matt, DaNice, Yvonne, or myself. But as folks are thinking, I just wanted to thank you all again for such an amazing conversation. This has been so fun to be able to connect with everyone. And I look forward to more. But I see Emily has her hand up.
I do. And I'm sorry, I'm going to mute again because the dogs are barking like crazy. She's old and cranky. That one, she's 15. So I'll be fast. Now that you guys have had the opportunity to be in 2 shows together, how has that influenced, or has it influenced your work in any way? Do you think about the work of your peers in this show as you're working?
Absolutely, for me. Absolutely. I'm inspired. I can never paint the way Matt paints. First of all, he's a top level. But I think there's things with his blues that I want to start working with. So I'm going to start working a little bit more with blues and orange, that color theme. And Ivan, I am inspired to try to do some more whimsy. So he was speaking of one of my pieces, Oh, Live Life Musically. It's a jazz piece I did, but I want to start incorporating more whimsy, so more abstract with realism. And I'm going to start doing those types of works. And I'll probably start working on a larger scale because I've been 24, 30. So I'm going to go a little larger.
That would be great. Yeah, I mean, I would just jump on that. I feel the same way. I feel like either something about my personality or something, but I tend to kind of make, grim or just kind of slightly downer paintings. I mean, I don't know. That's me talking about them. They're useful for me, but I feel the same way, that there's a kind of a brightness and a celebratoriness to both Yvonne and DaNice's work that I've been wanting to welcome into my work for a while. And there's one image in this new body of work that I'm making that actually kind of makes fun of myself. I'm using myself as a model, and it's political and it's serious, but it's also silly. And then there's another image that has also political, personal, and silly stuff going on in it. And I do think that I'm feeling that more from these 2 great artists.
Yeah, 3-timer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
before, oh, sorry, Yvonne, before you jump in, can you
No, go
all
ahead, go ahead.
Can you all just briefly share, because I don't think people watching this would realize that you all have worked together multiple times.
Yeah.
Can you sort of share the different exhibits that you all have been in together? And then Yvonne, you will close us out with your word of wisdom and creativity. So
Well, I loved being included in the Art as Salve with Yvonne and DaNice. And I think that was a wonderful, I think it makes sense for our bodies of work. And it was such an interesting curatorial project. And so that was kind of my first introduction to these artists. And then it just so happened that both DaNice and I, is correct, right? We got into the piano craft.
Exactly.
And that show had similar themes, kind of about a political urgency and a social urgency.
Right.
And that felt really, man, that show was amazing. Just to be a part of that and that whole atmosphere of what all the artists were trying to say.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then of course this one. This one's my favorite though, Ashleigh. This is my favorite.
All right, Ivan.
Oh my God. Okay. I would say that, it's referring the previous question to is that, the good thing about art in general is like makes us, at the end of the day, makes us more humble because you just look at that something else that you kind of don't need in a way physically. I mean, food or whatever, house or so it makes us looks out, to something more deep and more connection, more connected to each other. Therefore, that's how I have become more humble throughout the years. And being humble means like also being appreciated how, you share your work with these two amazing artists, Matt and DaNice, and you learn from them. And like just to like going to a museum. I have gotten some inspiration and painting from other artists. Why not from these two great artists that are like, the nice subject matters are so subtle and so deep, and symbolistic. What and the colors are right. Why not? You look into it, it's like I can use some of that. Mad chiaroscuro and the deepness, the techniques. Like, well, maybe I'm kind of messing up on certain things, or his view, his composition, that eye that he has. I have, my newest painting was inspired by William Blake drawing or painting The Ancient of Days. I used it, I corrupted, I used, Leonardo da Vinci, the Vitruvian, man, and I used my own. I mean, Picasso says, great paintings copied, a genius painting still. So why not? This is the humbleness of, how you can be open and still, a great poet and writer, Jorge Luis Borges says, I'm still unique because I've chosen and I choose my own influences. Doesn't mean that you are, have to block yourself or say no. You choose your influence. Yes, the DaNice and Matt has influenced me in certain patterns, certain thing. I'm proud of that because I still have chosen those influences, and we're lucky enough to have us and see, look at each other in a different mirror. So that is the question in art. It's Picasso say it's the light that makes us realize the truth. So that's what we're trying to portray.
And super quickly, and thank you so much, Ivan. That is a perfect way to end this discussion. But where can we find your work? So I know that the three of you have Instagram accounts and websites. Where's the best way for people watching this video to introduce themselves to your work? And DaNice, would you mind starting us off, sharing your Instagram and websites, please? And put them in the chat too, if you can.
I can't. I'm using my phone. Okay, so I can't do that, but it's easy. My website, www.DaNiceDMarshall.com. And the same with Instagram at DaNice_D_Marshall. Real simple.
Excellent. Matt?
Yeah, I'm entering it. It's www.mattbrackett.com, and then my Instagram is mattbracketart.com. All one word.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's saying in my case, www.ivanbrens.com. My Instagram is ivan.brens Instagram, and yeah, it's same thing. Yeah.
All right, excellent. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. If you are in the Boston area, you have approximately 5 days left to see the show at the New Art Center corridor. But continue to support the work of Ivan, DaNice, and Matt.
Thank you.
Like I said, these are three exceptionally talented artists, and I look forward to watching their work, and I hope you all do too. And just quickly to close out, continue to support your local artists and your communities always and forever. And go listen to Nancy Wilson if you haven't already. Go listen to Guess Who I Saw Today. And have a wonderful night and take care of yourselves.
Thank
Thank
so
you.
much,
You as
everybody.
well. Thank you for having us.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
so much
Really
to
an honor to
everybody.
show you all
Yeah,
and talk to you all.
wonderful
Thank
show.
you.
Really great. Thank you.